Imagine, for just a second, that you're trying to build the world's most advanced high-tech skyscraper.
Okay.
The engineering is flawless, you've got cutting-edge materials, and your crew is they're working at absolute record speed.
Right, firing on all cylinders.
Exactly. But there is a massive catch. You are trying to build this skyscraper in the absolute dead center of a Category 5 geopolitical hurricane.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so like every single time you place a steel beam, the ground shakes, the wind is howling, and the federal government is, actively threatening to shut down your entire operation.
It's just an incredibly chaotic image, right? Because you have this relentless breakneck forward momentum, but it's completely colliding with these massive, unpredictable external forces. I mean, that is not an environment where most companies survive, let alone actually innovate.
No, totally. And welcome to the deep dive. Because today we're looking at a single explosive week in the AI industry, mid-March 2026.
Specifically, that historic 7-day window from March 15th to March 21st.
Right. Because in just 1 week, Anthropic managed to, well, they mapped the global psychology of AI users. They launched these massive developer updates. And this is the crazy part, ended up in a full-blown historic legal war with the United States Pentagon.
Yeah, it was quite a week.
To say the least. So for you listening, this is really about cutting through the noise. We're taking a super dense stack of sources. I mean, everything from federal court filings to highly technical developer release notes, and we're extracting the actual mechanisms of what happened and why it matters to your daily life.
Exactly. Because we aren't just looking at what they built, right? We're looking at the massive friction their decisions caused in the real world.
Right. Okay, let's unpack this, because before we can even get into the massive legal war or the new products, we kind of have to understand the users. Like, what do people actually want from AI right now?
Yeah, that's the foundational question.
And around March 18th, Anthropic published an official research paper that answered this on a scale we have, frankly, never seen before. They ran the largest qualitative AI user study ever conducted.
And, the methodology here is what makes it so groundbreaking. Because they didn't just email out a multiple choice survey with, like, a 1 to 10 rating scale.
Right. Nobody fills those out, honestly, anyway.
Exactly. Instead, they utilized an autonomous AI interviewer.
Wait, an AI interviewer?
Yeah, this AI actually conducted deep, dynamic, back-and-forth conversations with over 80,000 people.
That's insane.
To be precise, it was 80,508 individuals across 159 different countries, speaking in 70 different languages.
I mean, it's like getting the ultimate global pulse check on AI anxiety versus excitement,
Yeah.
Almost like mapping the collective human psyche responding to a brand new tool in real time.
It really is. And the data they published from this, again, sourced directly from Anthropic's research division, revealed this massive global tension.
Tension how?
Well, on one hand, you have this incredible economic empowerment. People are using these tools to do their jobs better and much faster, but that excitement is colliding with a deeply shared anxiety. They found that 26.7% of users explicitly fear AI unreliability and something they actually called cognitive atrophy.
Oh, wow. Cognitive atrophy.
Yeah.
I kind of want to pause on that phrase because it's just so visceral.
It really is.
For anyone listening, just think about what happened to our sense of direction when we all got GPS on our phones, right?
Oh, totally. We used to navigate by landmarks and memories.
Exactly. And now, if the map app crashes, we're completely lost in our own neighborhoods.
Yeah, we have no idea where we are.
So is that what these users are afraid of, but for their actual critical thinking skills?
That is the perfect analogy. What's fascinating here is that the capabilities people want, most things, like cognitive assistance, complex life management, professional writing, are exactly what they fear becoming entirely dependent on. They want the AI to help them think, but they're terrified of losing their own ability to formulate an original thought or, solve a hard problem. And this gives Anthropic's product teams a very clear empirical mandate based on hard data. It basically tells them, you cannot just build a smart, authoritative oracle that does all the thinking for the user.
Right. You can't just build a crutch.
Exactly. You have to build interfaces that create cognitive scaffolding, meaning the AI supports your thinking process rather than encouraging intellectual passivity.
Okay, but how do you actually build a product that does that? Because that dichotomy, the anxiety of losing your edge versus the desire for massive empowerment, that perfectly explains Anthropic's product strategy this week.
It really drove everything they shipped.
Yeah, they're actively trying to shift users from being these, like, micromanagers who just sit and type prompts all day, to becoming high-level orchestrators of digital labor.
Right.
Which brings us to a major product drop they announced on March 17th called Claude Dispatch.
Right, so Claude Dispatch for Cowork launched as a research preview for their Pro and Max tier users. And at its core, it creates a persistent cross-device agent thread.
Okay, what does that mean in practice?
It essentially connects your mobile phone directly to your desktop computer.
So instead of me sitting at my keyboard, holding the AI's hand step by step, it's like I'm texting a highly capable intern to do the heavy lifting on my Mac.
Exactly.
I could literally be out getting coffee, and from my phone, I can dispatch a complex task to my desktop sitting back at the office. And the AI just operates in a localized sandbox on my machine, doing all that asynchronously.
You're delegating, not dictating. But here is the catch. To make that kind of asynchronous delegation work seamlessly and securely, which is huge, the underlying infrastructure for developers has to be virtually flawless.
Yeah, I'd imagine.
If you have an AI agent running around in your desktop's file system while you aren't looking, the guardrails and the efficiency of that code have to be bulletproof.
Which leads us right into the developer tools they ship to support this.
Yeah.
Because they didn't just release consumer features, they went incredibly deep into the back end.
They really did.
According to their GitHub repository, between March 17th and March 20th, Anthropic shipped 5 consecutive updates to the Claude Code CLI.
5 updates in 4 days.
Yeah. In just 4 days, they pushed versions 2.1.77 through 2.1.81. And okay, this is where we need to translate some heavy developer jargon, because the features they added are wild.
Let's do it.
They add something called a bear mode that's --bear for CI/CD scripting. And they gave developers native model context protocol, or MCP, environments, plus this channel's permission relay thing.
Okay, let's break those down because they're critical. CI/CD stands for continuous integration and continuous deployment. Think of it like a highly automated assembly line for software.
Right.
Developers write code, and the CI/CD pipeline automatically tests it, checks for bugs, and prepares it for launch. By adding a bear mode, Anthropic essentially allowed Claude to act like a headless, invisible robot worker on that exact assembly line.
So it can just review code and run tests completely in the background without needing a human to click around.
Exactly. And then you mentioned the MCP environment, Native Model Context Protocol.
Yeah, which sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie.
It kind of does, but MCP is essentially a universal translator plugin. In the past, if a developer wanted an AI to talk to a specific local database or a custom piece of software, they had to write a bunch of custom, really fragile code to bridge the gap.
Just to get them to talk to each other.
Right. MCP standardizes that. It provides a native, highly optimized bridge so the AI can just plug in and start interacting with local files and tools instantly.
That's huge. And what about that channel's permission relay?
Oh, that's brilliant. So if the AI is working in the background and hits a wall, say it needs approval to do something sensitive, it can route that request from the computer terminal straight to the developer's mobile phone via Telegram or Discord.
Okay, but wait. If this AI is doing all that heavy lifting in the background, reading files, running code in a continuous loop, how do developers control the runaway token costs?
That is the million-dollar question.
Right, because these models charged by the token, which is basically a piece of a word, a single unchecked loop could burn through hundreds of thousands of tokens and cost a fortune. Plus, wouldn't having an AI constantly running in the background just completely fry a laptop's memory?
And those are the exact 2 massive problems that version 2.1.80 solved. First, to manage the costs, they bumped the maximum output up to 128K tokens for their 4.6 models. But more importantly, they gave developers real-time visibility into their exact API write limits right on their screen.
So you can see exactly what you're spending as the agent works. No surprise bills.
Exactly. And second, they optimized the local compute overhead. They managed to drop the startup memory footprint by 80 megabytes.
Now, 80 megabytes might not sound like a lot to the average person who's just like downloading a movie or something, but in the context of developer tools, why is that such a game changer?
Because developers are usually running what are called monorepos, these massive, sprawling directories of code. And they aren't just running one AI agent. They might have multiple terminal sessions open concurrently.
Right.
Every megabyte of RAM matters. If the AI agent eats too much memory, the computer's fans start sounding like a jet engine and the whole machine just crashes.
Yeah, we've all been there with a jet engine laptop.
Right. So dropping the footprint by 80 megabytes means the AI can run silently and efficiently in the background all day long. It's a massive quality of life improvement.
It's really all about building bulletproof infrastructure. And they took that exact same philosophy to their API. Sourced from the Claude developer platform, between March 16th and 18th, they updated their model's API to dynamically expose capability and token limits. Plus, they shipped Python SDK version 0.86.0 with file system memory tools.
And this is a subtle but absolutely vital update for the enterprise ecosystem.
Yeah.
When companies build multi-model orchestrator software that routes tasks to different AI models depending on the job they used to have to hard code the model's capabilities. So if Anthropic updated a model, the company's code might just break. Now, the API dynamically tells the software, hey, here are my current limits and features. It drastically reduces integration fragility in a market where model lineups are evolving every few weeks.
So we have a week where Anthropic is shipping consumer agents, they're optimizing massive developer tools, and streamlining enterprise APIs at just an absolute breakneck speed.
Yeah.
But all of that high-speed velocity and their deep focus on user trust and safety guardrails through constitutional AI brings us directly to the week's biggest, most explosive flashpoint.
The geopolitical war.
Exactly. Now, before we get into this next part, we need to be very clear. We are entering highly politically charged territory here, involving the Trump administration, the Pentagon, and civil liberties advocacy groups like the ACLU.
Right. There's a lot of heated rhetoric on both sides.
Absolutely. So just a quick but really important note for you listening. Our goal here is not to take sides or endorse any political viewpoint.
At all.
Right. We are impartially reporting the exact factual claims presented in the verified court documents, just so you can understand what is actually at stake in this standoff.
It's a vital distinction because the legal precedents being set here are historic. They will affect the entire tech industry.
Okay, let's lay out the facts.
Yeah.
Sourced from U.S. District Court filings, along with reporting from Bloomberg and TechCrunch, between March 16th and March 20th. The United States Department of Justice filed a 14-page brief against Anthropic.
Okay.
The core of their argument is a claim that Anthropic's AI represents a supply chain risk, suggesting Anthropic could potentially disable, degrade, or manipulate military AI systems.
And Anthropic instantly countered this.
Right.
They filed sworn declarations revealing two massive points. First, that the Pentagon had actually admitted they were very close to an alignment agreement just days prior to the government banning them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And second, Anthropic stated under oath that they have absolutely zero remote access to the military systems in question.
Which is a huge detail.
To understand why this matters, we really have to look at how the government traditionally views a supply chain risk. Historically, that designation is meant exclusively for foreign adversaries.
Right, like a hostile state actor building compromised hardware, like routers or microchips.
Exactly. Using this designation against a domestic American AI lab simply because the lab refuses to drop its self-imposed ethical bans on mass surveillance and autonomous lethal weapons. I mean, that is completely unprecedented.
See, here's where it gets really interesting to me. The DOJ is essentially arguing that Anthropic might flip a kill switch to intentionally sabotage a military operation through a software update.
Right.
But Anthropic's head of public sector explicitly swore in federal court that these are air-gapped systems. For the listener, an air-gapped system means the computer is physically disconnected from the public internet. It is a closed loop.
Right, you can't just remote into it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So doesn't that make the government's technical risk argument completely fall apart? If Anthropic can't even reach the server, how could they possibly sabotage it?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it exposes a fundamental friction between legacy government procurement and modern AI architecture.
How so?
You are entirely correct about the air gap. Anthropic cannot unilaterally push an update to a classified military server. The Pentagon has to physically manually review and install any new weights or safety guardrails. But the DOJ's argument relies on the nature of large language models themselves. They are dynamic, updatable systems. They aren't static software you buy once on a CD-ROM in 1998, you know?
Yeah, you're not just installing Microsoft Word and leaving it for 10 years.
Exactly. Because Anthropic's engineers are constantly refining how the AI behaves, the government argues that the mere potential for Anthropic to introduce a restrictive update in the future constitutes a vulnerability.
Wow. So it is a total clash of fundamental worldviews. The government wants absolute, unrestricted control over the tool forever, and the company says, well, we will not update the tool to let you build autonomous weapons.
Yeah.
And the broader legal community is not just watching this from the sidelines. They are actively jumping into the fight. According to the ACLU and CNN, on March 16th and 17th, nearly 150 retired federal and state judges, alongside major tech industry groups, filed amicus briefs supporting Anthropic's injunction request.
Right, and an amicus brief is essentially a friend of the court filing where outside experts weigh in. And what they highlighted is widespread bipartisan legal
What's
concerns.
their main argument?
They're arguing that punishing a private American company for its public advocacy around AI safety is a severe lack of due process and a potential violation of the First Amendment.
That's a huge claim.
It is. They acknowledge the military has every right to choose its vendors, but the judges argue the government does not have the right to legally brand a company a national security threat simply as a punitive measure for its safety stance.
And while Anthropic was fighting this unprecedented battle in the federal courts, they were simultaneously getting flanked on the legislative side.
Oh yeah, it didn't stop there.
No. Just a few days later, on March 20th, CNN Business reported that the Executive Office of the President released a new national AI legislative framework.
And this was a highly aggressive regulatory maneuver. The administration's new framework enacts unified federal AI safety guardrails, but with a major catch.
Right.
It explicitly preempts any localized state AI regulations.
Right, so what does that mean in practice? If a state has its own rules, the federal government just wipes them out.
Exactly. It systematically dismantles the stringent state-level protections that places like California and New York have spent years building.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it replaces them with a highly deregulated federal standard. For a safety-oriented company like Anthropic, which has historically aligned its development with those stricter state rules, this creates a wildly volatile compliance environment. The rules of the road were basically just rewritten overnight.
I mean, think about the pressure cooker this company's in right now. They're fighting the Pentagon in federal court. They're navigating a completely upended national regulatory framework. As we discussed earlier, they're launching massive, complex developer tools concurrently.
Yeah.
Something has to give. You cannot sustain that kind of pressure without the seams starting to show.
And the data reflects that reality. The operational strain became highly visible.
Yeah. According to Anthropic's own status page, spanning from March 17th to March 21st, they experienced elevated service instability across almost all of their cloud surfaces.
Basically everything.
Yeah, we talked about elevated error rates and response hangs here to the Claude.a web interface,
Yeah.
the Claude Code CLI we talked about earlier, and even the underlying Opus and Sonnet 4.6 models. This lasted across 5 consecutive days globally.
You know, you just cannot separate the technology from the geopolitical context it is operating within. Building cutting-edge AI requires immense operational focus. When your executive team and your security infrastructure are under their most high-profile, high-pressure geopolitical test to date, the technical infrastructure is going to feel the strain.
Of course. But here is the ultimate twist in this story. Despite the severe government blacklisting, despite the 5-day service hiccups, and despite being directly in the political crosshairs, the global enterprise market is fiercely betting on Anthropic.
Which is fascinating.
It is. And they are doing it precisely because of Anthropic's rigid stance on trusted, explainable AI.
It is a brilliant pivot in their enterprise narrative. The exact rigidity and ethical stubbornness that got them banned by the Pentagon is exactly what makes them wildly attractive to highly regulated corporate sectors.
Let's look at the evidence for that. On March 21st, the Futurman Group reported that Infosys and Anthropic announced a massive strategic partnership. The explicit goal of this partnership is to deliver secure, compliant AI solutions specifically for highly regulated industries.
And why this matters is that it proves a thesis about the corporate world. Massive sectors like global finance, healthcare, and telecommunications, they don't just want the smartest, fastest AI.
Right, raw speed isn't everything.
Exactly. They actively prioritize audit trails, explainability, and strict compliance over the raw, unregulated innovation speed of Anthropic's competitors. When you are a bank processing millions of mortgages, you need an AI that follows the rules strictly.
Yeah, you can't have an AI hallucinating on a mortgage rate.
No. So Anthropic's battle with the government essentially proves to these banks that Anthropic will not compromise its guardrails.
And they aren't just partnering with IT integrators like Infosys. They're going straight to the absolute top of the global capital food chain.
Oh, yeah.
According to Axios, on March 17th, Anthropic entered deep discussions with top-tier private equity firms. We're talking heavyweights like Blackstone, Hellman & Friedman, and Permira. They are looking to create an enterprise AI consulting joint venture.
This is just a masterstroke in capital-efficient distribution. By partnering with these massive private equity firms, Anthropic can deeply embed Claude into hundreds of PE portfolio companies all at once.
Wow.
Yeah, they get massive market penetration without diluting their core engineering focus or needing to build a massive, expensive internal consulting arm from scratch.
So for you listening, this means the next time you interact with your bank, your healthcare provider, or even your local internet company, there's a very good chance Claude is running the back end, quietly enforcing these strict safety rules.
Yep.
So it's essentially a massive fork in the road for the AI industry. On one hand, the U.S. defense apparatus bans them and labels them a supply chain risk because they won't compromise their ethical guardrails. But on the exact same week, the biggest players in global capital are rushing to hand them the keys to their portfolio companies for that exact same reason.
It's a vivid illustration of a deep market bifurcation. One side of the AI market is choosing to align strictly with national defense apparatuses, essentially becoming technological extensions of state power. While Anthropic is carving out a totally distinct lane, they're positioning themselves as the neutral, heavily regulated, ethically bound infrastructure layer for global enterprise.
So what does this all mean? If you step back and look at this single wild week in March 2026, it proves something vital for anyone trying to stay well-informed. Keeping up with AI is no longer just about reading model benchmarks or counting context tokens or seeing who can generate the coolest image.
Not anymore, no.
It is about watching the fundamental rules of society, work, and war being rewritten in real time. Anthropic didn't just ship code this week. They drew a hard line in the sand that forced the U.S. government, the federal courts, and global capital markets to react.
And this raises an incredibly important question, and it is something for you to deeply consider long after this deep dive ends. Think back to where we started Anthropic's 81,000-person study.
Right, the cognitive atrophy fears.
Exactly. It showed a massive global fear of AI unreliability. But the events of this week suggest that the real unreliability might not be the code at all. The real unreliability might be the governance.
Oof.
Yeah. If a single company's internal ethical guidelines can trigger a national security crisis today, what happens tomorrow when these autonomous agentic models are deeply and inextricably integrated into the world's critical infrastructure? Who actually has the final say over how they behave? Is it the developers who write the constitution of the AI, or is it the governments that buy the hardware?
That is the defining tension of this era, and it brings us right back to our skyscraper. You can engineer the perfect building with the most advanced tools and the smartest crew. But if you don't understand the geopolitical storm raging around it, you are entirely missing the real story. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the information around you, keep looking for the bigger picture, and we will catch you next time.